The city of Los Angeles, a place of dreams, where people come from all over the world looking for something new, a fresh start. For 21-year-old Elisa Lam, it was supposed to be an adventure, a solo trip up the West Coast. She was a student from Vancouver, Canada. Bright, inquisitive. She documented her journey on her blog, sharing her thoughts and hopes with the world. Her posts spoke of a young woman finding her way, grappling with her own insecurities, but excited for the future. She called her trip the West Coast Tour. It was a journey of self-discovery, a chance to see new sights and experience life on her own terms before heading back to her studies at the University of British Columbia. She arrived in Los Angeles on January 26, 2013. The city was bustling, a stark contrast to the quieter life she knew. She checked into the Cecil Hotel, a budget-friendly option right in the heart of downtown LA. It was an imposing building, a relic from another era. To Elisa, it was likely just a place to rest her head, a base from which to explore the sprawling metropolis. She was supposed to check out on January 31st and head to her next destination, Santa Cruz. Her family back in Canada expected to hear from her every day. It was a promise she made, a way to keep them reassured while she was travelling alone so far from home. Her blog entries from that time were filled with observations about the city. She wrote about the fashion she saw, the books she was reading, and the feeling of being in a new place, both exhilarating and a little lonely. She was an ordinary young woman on an extraordinary journey. But the city of angels has its darker side. And the hotel she chose had a past, a history steeped in shadow and tragedy. Elisa was unaware that her search for adventure was leading her into one of Los Angeles' most enduring and chilling mysteries. A story that would soon capture the attention of the entire world, not for its joy, but for its profound and unsettling questions. The plan was simple. Explore, see the sights, keep in touch. Her parents, David and Yina Lam, waited for her daily calls. They were supportive of their daughter's independent spirit, but like any parents, they worried. The daily check-ins were a comfort. For the first few days, everything went according to plan. Elisa called home as promised. She visited a bookstore, bought some souvenirs for her family, and seemed to be enjoying her time. But then, on January 31st, the day she was scheduled to leave the Cecil Hotel, the calls stopped. The silence was deafening. Her adventure had taken a dark and sudden turn. The Cecil Hotel was not just any hotel. Built in the 1920s, it was once a grand destination for business travelers and tourists. A beautiful Beaux-Arts building designed to impress. But the Great Depression hit hard, and the hotel, along with the neighborhood around it, began a long, slow decline. Over the decades, the Cecil's reputation transformed. It became a place known for transient residents, for desperation and for death. Its halls seemed to collect stories, each one darker than the last. It was a place where shadows lingered long after the sun came up, a silent witness to the city's underbelly. The hotel's history is a catalogue of tragedy. It became notorious for the number of suicides that occurred within its walls, with people leaping from its windows. But the darkness didn't stop there. It was reportedly one of the last places Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia, was seen alive in 1947 before her infamous unsolved murder. In the 1980s, the hotel was home to not one, but two serial killers. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, lived on the 14th floor during his horrific killing spree. And later, Austrian serial killer Jack Unterweger also called the Cecil home, murdering several prostitutes while staying there. The hotel had a magnetic pull for the city's darkest elements. By the time Elisa Lam checked in, the hotel was trying to rebrand itself. Part of the building was marketed as a trendy hostel called Stay on Main. an attempt to attract a new generation of travelers. But the past was not so easily erased. The hotel's reputation was a ghost that could not be exorcised. It was a place where the vulnerable seemed to find themselves, a crossroads of misfortune. For many, the Cecil was a last resort. For Elisa, it was an affordable stop on her trip. She was a tourist, an outsider who had unknowingly stepped into a place with a soul-crushing history of its own. The atmosphere inside was something many guests commented on, a feeling of unease, a certain heaviness in the air. The long, dimly lit corridors, the creaking floors, the sense of being watched. It was the kind of place that could play tricks on the mind, where the line between reality and imagination could easily blur. The Cecil Hotel was more than just a building, it was a character in this story. A silent, brooding presence that held its secrets close. And soon, it would have one more secret to keep: the strange and sudden disappearance of Elisa Lam. Elisa checked into the Cecil Hotel on January 26, 2013. At first, she was placed in a shared hostel-style room on the 5th floor, a common choice for a young traveller on a budget. However, her roommates soon complained. They reported what they described as odd behaviour. The specifics were never made public, but it was enough for the hotel management to move her. 2 days later, on January 28th, Elisa was given a private room of her own on the same floor. This move isolated her, placing her alone within the hotel's sprawling, labyrinthine corridors. It was a small change, but one that would become significant in the days that followed. For the next few days, Elisa's life seemed normal. She was seen in the hotel lobby. She visited a nearby bookstore, the last bookstore, where she bought books and music to take back home as gifts. The store's manager later remembered her, saying she was cheerful and friendly. She was also active on her blog, posting pictures and sharing her thoughts. Her posts seemed to reflect the ups and downs of solo travel, moments of excitement mixed with feelings of melancholy. She was reaching out, connecting with the world through her screen, even as she navigated a new city all by herself. The last day anyone saw Elisa Lam alive was January 31st. That was the day she was supposed to check out and travel to Santa Cruz. Her parents, back in British Columbia, were expecting her call. It never came. When they didn't hear from her, they immediately knew something was wrong. It was completely out of character for their reliable daughter to break her promise. Panic began to set in. They contacted the Los Angeles Police Department and filed a missing person report. The search for Elisa Lam officially began. But where do you start looking for one person in a city of millions? The police began their investigation at the hotel. They searched her room. All her belongings were still there. Her wallet, her identification, her laptop. Everything she would have needed to continue her journey was left behind. It was as if she had simply vanished into thin air. Police dogs were brought in to search the hotel, including the rooftop, but they found no trace of her scent. The hotel staff was questioned. Guests were interviewed. But no one had seen her leave. The last confirmed sighting was inside the hotel itself. The Cecil had swallowed her whole, leaving behind only her possessions and a terrifying silence. As the search for Elisa Lam stretched into its second week with no leads, the LAPD made a crucial decision. On February 13th, 2013, they released a piece of evidence to the public, hoping someone might recognize her or have information. It was a video, a silent, grainy 4-minute clip from one of the Cecil Hotel's elevator surveillance cameras. The footage was dated January 31st, the day she disappeared. What it showed was bizarre, unsettling, and would turn the case into a global obsession. The video was not the clue the police had hoped for. Instead, it was the beginning of an entirely new mystery. The video begins with Elisa entering the elevator. She presses multiple buttons on the control panel. Then she waits. But the elevator doors don't close. She peeks out into the hallway, looking cautiously from side to side, as if hiding from someone. She then retreats back into the corner of the elevator, pressing herself against the wall as if trying to become invisible. The doors still remain open. Her movements are strange, almost theatrical. It's a dance of fear and confusion, performed for an audience that isn't there. She seems to be interacting with something or someone just out of the camera's view. Then her behavior becomes even more erratic. She steps out of the elevator and stands in the hallway. She begins to move her hands and arms in a strange, disjointed way. She talks and gestures, but there is no one there. Her fingers twist and fly through the air as if she's counting or casting a spell. It's a silent, disturbing monologue. After a few moments of this, she walks away down the hallway to the left and disappears from the camera's frame. Only then, after she is gone, do the elevator doors finally slide shut, opening and closing a few more times before the video ends. The release of the elevator footage had an explosive effect. It went viral. Millions of people watched it, analyzed it, and debated it. What was happening in that video? Was she afraid of someone pursuing her? Was she under the influence of drugs or alcohol? Or was she experiencing some kind of psychotic episode? Her strange gestures were dissected frame by frame. Some viewers even claimed the video had been tampered with, pointing to a blurred timestamp and moments that seemed to be slowed down or edited. The footage offered no answers, only more profound and disturbing questions. It was a 4-minute glimpse into her final terrifying moments. Once the elevator video hit the internet, the case of Elisa Lam transformed. It was no longer just a missing person investigation, it became a crowdsourced mystery, a modern-day ghost story for the digital age. Armchair detectives from around the world gathered on forums like Reddit and Websleuths. They dedicated countless hours to dissecting every second of the footage, every detail of the case. They analysed maps of the hotel, translated her blog posts, and developed elaborate theories about what might have happened. The internet's collective curiosity was a powerful force, but it was also a chaotic one filled with speculation and misinformation. The theories ranged from the plausible to the paranormal. Many focused on Elisa's known history of mental illness. She had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression, and she was taking several medications. Some argued that her strange behavior in the elevator was consistent with a severe manic episode, possibly exacerbated by not taking her medication correctly. This theory suggested she may have become paranoid and disoriented, leading her to hide on the roof in a state of psychosis. It was a rational explanation, but for many, it didn't feel complete. It didn't explain how she ended up where she was found. Other theories pointed toward foul play. Was she hiding from someone in the elevator? The Cecil Hotel's dark history made it easy to believe that another guest or even an employee could have been involved. Some theorists pointed to the fact that the elevator doors didn't close, suggesting someone might have been holding the door button from the outside. The idea that she was murdered and her body later placed in the water tank was a popular and persistent theory. However, the police investigation found no evidence of a struggle, no signs of assault, and no DNA from anyone else in her room or near her body. Then there were the more outlandish theories, fueled by the hotel's haunted reputation and a series of strange coincidences. Some claimed she was playing the elevator game, a Korean urban legend where pressing buttons in a specific sequence can supposedly lead to another dimension. Others pointed to a bizarre parallel with the 2005 horror film, which features a similar plot involving a haunted apartment building, faulty elevators, and the body of a missing girl discovered in the rooftop water tank. These coincidences, combined with the eerie video, created a perfect storm for supernatural speculation, turning Elisa Lam's tragedy into a modern folktale. While the internet was busy debating theories, the situation inside the Cecil Hotel was, honestly, just deteriorating. In the weeks following Elisa's disappearance, guests began to complain. The water pressure was low. The water itself had a strange, dark colour and an unusual, sweetish taste. Some reported that it was black for a few seconds when they first turned on the tap before clearing. The hotel, facing a growing number of complaints, finally sent a maintenance worker to investigate the source of the problem on the morning of February 19th, 2013, nearly 3 weeks after Elisa was last seen. The maintenance worker, Santiago Lopez, made his way to the roof of the hotel. The rooftop was an area restricted to guests, accessible only through locked doors with alarms or via the fire escape. On the roof stood 4 large cylindrical water tanks, each about 10 feet tall. They supplied water to the entire hotel, for showers, for sinks, for drinking. He noticed that the lid on one of the main tanks was unlatched. It was a heavy metal lid that would have been difficult to open or close alone. He climbed a ladder to peer inside, expecting to find a problem with a pump or a filter. What he saw instead was a sight of pure horror. Floating face up in the dark water was the naked body of a woman. It was Elisa Lam. Her clothes, the same ones she was wearing in the elevator video, were in the water with her, along with her room key. The search was over. She had been in that tank the entire time, while guests below showered and drank the water. The grim discovery sent shockwaves through the hotel and the city. The Los Angeles Fire Department was called to the scene, faced with the difficult task of recovering her body from the confined space. The recovery was a complex operation. The opening at the top of the tank was too small to lift her out without causing further damage to the body, which had been decomposing in the water for 19 days. Firefighters had to make a difficult decision. They had to cut a square hole in the side of the massive metal tank to drain the water and carefully remove her remains. The image of firefighters working on that roof, draining the tank that held such a tragic secret, became one of the final haunting images of the case, broadcast to a world that had become captivated by her story. With the discovery of Elisa Lam's body, one part of the mystery was solved. The world now knew where she was. But the most important question remained: how did she die? And how did she get into that water tank in the first place? The Los Angeles County Coroner's Office conducted an autopsy. The world waited for answers, hoping for a conclusion that would bring clarity to the disturbing chain of events. Everyone, from the online sleuths to the police investigators, hoped the medical examination would finally provide a definitive explanation for what happened on that rooftop. The results of the autopsy, released several months later in June, only deepened the mystery. The coroner's official finding was accidental drowning. A secondary factor listed was her bipolar disorder. The report stated that there were no signs of physical trauma on her body, no bruises, no cuts, no evidence of sexual assault. Furthermore, the toxicology report found no traces of alcohol or illegal drugs in her system. She did have her prescription medications, but the report indicated she may have been under-medicating, which could have triggered a manic episode. The official story became one of tragedy, not crime. But this official ruling failed to satisfy almost everyone. It raised more questions than it answered. How did she get onto the roof, an area that was supposed to be locked and alarmed? Hotel staff claimed the doors were secure, though some reports suggested one of the alarms may not have been working. How did she climb into the 10-foot-tall tank by herself? And how did she manage to close the heavy lid from the inside, if that is what happened? The maintenance worker had found the lid ajar, but it was still a feat that seemed nearly impossible for one person, especially in a disoriented state. The official explanation left a vacuum, and speculation rushed in to fill it. If it was an accident, it was a bizarre and highly improbable one. If it was foul play, the killer left no trace. The lack of evidence for either scenario created a frustrating stalemate. The police officially closed the case, satisfied with the coroner's findings. For them, it was a sad accident, but for the public, and most certainly for her family, it was anything but closed. The pieces of the puzzle didn't fit together, leaving the haunting image of Elisa Lam in the elevator and the inexplicable circumstances of her death forever suspended in uncertainty. In the years since Elisa Lam's death, the Cecil Hotel has become more infamous than ever. Her story is now woven into the fabric of its already dark history, the latest and most widely known chapter in its long tale of tragedy. The hotel has become a pilgrimage site for true crime enthusiasts and those fascinated by the paranormal. People come to stare up at its imposing facade, to walk the same streets Elisa walked, and to feel the chilling atmosphere for themselves. The hotel tried to rebrand, changing its name and undergoing renovations, but it cannot escape its past. It will forever be known as the place where Elisa Lam vanished. The case had a significant impact on the hotel's business and its future. Not long after the discovery, the hotel was sold, and plans were announced for a major overhaul to turn it into a mix of boutique hotel rooms and affordable housing. The water tanks on the roof, symbols of the grim discovery, were removed. But the name Cecil carries a weight that renovations cannot easily lift. The hotel's identity is now inextricably linked to this unsolved mystery, a fact that has been cemented by numerous documentaries, television series and online discussions that continue to re-examine the case. The story of Elisa Lam also serves as a powerful example of the internet's role in modern crime stories. It showed how quickly a local case can become a global phenomenon, and how collective online obsession can both help and hinder an investigation. The endless speculation created a fog of misinformation that at times was hurtful to the family and complicated the public's understanding of the facts. Yet, it was this same online interest that has kept her memory alive, ensuring that her strange and tragic death is not forgotten. Her story resonated with so many because it felt like it could happen to anyone. For the family of Elisa Lam, the legacy is one of profound and unending grief. They filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the hotel, arguing that it failed to provide a safe environment for their daughter. The lawsuit was ultimately dismissed, with the court ruling that the hotel could not have foreseen that a guest would climb into one of its water tanks. For her parents, there are no answers, no closure, only the painful memory of a bright young woman who went on an adventure and never came home. The Cecil Hotel may get a new name and a new look, but for the Lam family it will always be a place of unimaginable loss. Today, more than a decade after that fateful trip to Los Angeles, the case of Elisa Lam remains an enigma. Officially, it is closed, labelled an accidental death, a tragic footnote in the LAPD's case files. But in the court of public opinion, it is anything but solved. The story continues to haunt us because the official explanation feels incomplete. It requires us to accept a series of highly improbable events, to ignore the strange behaviour in the elevator, and to dismiss the lingering sense that there is more to the story than we have been told. The narrative just doesn't sit right. The central mystery hinges on a set of contradictions. There is no evidence of foul play, yet the circumstances of her death are incredibly suspicious. She had a history of mental illness that could explain her behaviour, yet her actions still seem to defy simple logic. How does a person end up in a locked-off area inside a massive water tank with no witnesses and no clear path of entry? Every rational explanation seems to have a counter-argument, a loose thread that, when pulled, unravels the entire theory. This is the enduring power of her story. It is a puzzle with missing pieces. The questions linger in the air like the unsettling quiet of the Cecil's hallways. What was Elisa Lamb hiding from in that elevator? Was there someone with her, just out of the camera's view? How did she get the heavy tank lid open? And if she entered the tank on her own, why were her clothes found in the water with her? These are the questions that investigators could not definitively answer, and the ones that online communities continue to debate to this day. 2025, August 3rd. The lack of closure ensures that the story is never truly over. Ultimately, the haunting mystery of Elisa Lam is a story about the unknown. It's about the terrifying thought that a person can simply disappear, and that even when they are found, the truth can remain just out of reach. It is a modern ghost story, not of spirits and spectres, but of unanswered questions and the chilling reality of a young life cut short in the most bizarre of circumstances. Elisa Lam went to Los Angeles seeking an adventure. She found a mystery instead, and in doing so, she became one herself. An enduring, unsolved enigma, forever frozen in time in that grainy elevator footage.